Welcome to Oregon Indie Film, a video podcast that shines the light on Oregon's independent film industry. I'm your host, Dawn Sellers. I interview Oregon's independent filmmakers who offer insights into the creative process, challenges, and triumphs of making movies in Oregon. Daniela Repas has made several winning films that incorporate animation and live action. She experiments with the confluence of narrative and nonfiction. This film is close to her heart as Daniela's first feature film. It includes interviews with her mother, aunt, and extended family and friends. All are Bosnians who survived the Bosnian War of the 1990s and rebuilt beautiful lives here in the States. Pour the Water as I Leave will be screening on June 20th at the PAM Whitsell Auditorium in celebration of World Refugee Day. There's a full schedule of events in downtown Portland. Find those details and a link to purchase tickets for the screening and Q&A in the show notes. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Daniela Repas. Welcome to the Oregon Indie Film Podcast. I'm here today with Daniela Repas, writer and director of the film Pour Water as I Leave, and Jessica Dougherty, who is with Shrine 13, the producer of the film. And this film will be screening on June 20th at the Whitsell Auditorium here in Portland. And so we're just here today to talk to Daniela and Jessica about the film. And so Jessica or Daniela, go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
Um, I am a visual artist and a filmmaker. I'm from Bosnia, but I've been living in US for the last a long time. Now doing it, I think about it. I'm based here in Portland, and my work has always been focused around storytelling, and then the medium kind of followed what the story requires.
Mm-hmm.
So, it went from drawing as my base for pretty much everything to multi-channel installations, and then to short films, and now to a feature film. Animation is a huge part of what I do. I'm very interested in the concept of time and how that is experienced through different mediums, which film, again, is such a huge challenge still, because of such a it is very opposite from what an installation work has done for me, like where time kind of work in this cyclical manner and the audience has more autonomy to edit and see the story and move through space, and versus film where you are taking all of that and kind of, I see it as like squishing it on this timeline where there is a beginning, middle, and end, and you are really talking to your audiences from a place of a storyteller rather than putting something out there that has like multiple versions that people can experience.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
and you have a really interesting media that you work in. I mean, it's film, but you incorporate the live action along with the animation.
yes.
So can you tell us sort of how you came to use that format in your films? What made you decide to incorporate those two together?
The first time when that happened was in my short film Mnemonics, where everything was live action besides animated segments that were then inserted into live action. And it's because I always think of memory as this in a form of a drawing, and animation allows me also to explore the states of the dreamscapes, the memoryscapes, and all of that much easier than the live action, since I would draw everything. So there is no limitation of how something can be represented. And I guess I see the world like that, where this presence of surreal, presence of magic, presence of something that goes beyond of what is just right in front of us.
Yeah.
So animation really became a vessel for me experiencing the world like that. And then as a medium, it's also excellent to portray things that we cannot film anymore, you know. So
Right.
that animation is really great in those, and has been used famously for that. But through Dogs of Home, my second short film, it was more of like, okay, how do we have them balanced with each other? You know, where animation served more, and this kind of like memory dreamscape was more of like a bookend to live action, to a documentary. Um, and then Pour the Water as I Leave, as a story itself, required a lot of bending of time and space,
Hmm.
and incorporating the two mediums was just a natural way to go with it. My
Hmm.
next film, though, that I'm planning is all live action
Oh,
for
okay.
now.
So, you were an artist first, then, an illustrator or visual artist first.
hmm
When did you decide that you wanted to be a filmmaker? Was there like a light bulb moment for you, or did it just naturally evolve into that, or did you always want to make a film?
I even have a hard time calling myself a filmmaker, even
Uh,
though that I have made films and
yeah.
been in film industry for a long time, because again, it's the story really that drives me. And it was, I mean, I'm obsessed with films otherwise, you know, they have always been a part of my life,
Hmm.
in the process, as an inspiration, but there was again like that switch happened when I was an editor for a feature film, Thank You for Supporting the Arts, where Jessica was the producer of as well. And it was in that period of time where I started thinking about this, uh, started thinking about time as linear, and not cyclical like I did in the installation.
Hmm.
And then realized that even in that linear format of like beginning, middle, and end, there is just so much to explore and how to tell a story and layers that you can bring in with visuals, with sound, I mean, those were all elements that I've used before in my work as well. It was just it was a challenge. I like challenge. I like things that push um, my understanding of storytelling, and you know, so it's not stagnant. It's always kind of, I like to explore new ways to communicate these ideas to the audiences.
Yeah. Well, so I
Mhm.
like that. You mostly identify then just as a storyteller. You see
Pretty
yourself as a
much.
storyteller,
Yeah,
no matter
I
what
know.
medium you're using. Yeah.
I mean, I've always wanted to make a play. Actually, that was the first thing when I was a little kid. Like, I still have the memory of this summer stage in my hometown where I was about to, you know, propose to the mayor and to like make a show there. I remember having these like cardboard trees that I wanted to make and stuff. And like, I made my friends always do these things. And so you know, I see that that can also happen in future,
Hmm.
because it's really storytelling that I'm interested in, and
Yeah.
how and since each one of them kind of affects us in such a different way, for me, it's very natural to go with a different medium.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Well, and with this film,
Mhm.
Pour the Water as I Leave, you have a very important story to tell. So this film means a lot to you personally. Um, and you connected with Jessica
Mhm.
because you two had worked together before. But what sort of brought this film forward? And, what made you decide to do this film and to go, to work with Jessica to make that happen?
Uh, this film was actually, it started around a fire pit in my backyard when a friend of mine from my hometown was visiting, and he was telling me a story his story of exile from Bosnia. And
Hmm.
he was telling me about this like hallway of a house where these young men would go to find, asylum or in Croatia. And when the door opened, there were all these animals in it, like cats and birds, and I could immediately visualize it. And it was at that moment that I realized, like, oh my God, your story, we are coming, we had the same point A and point B because he ended up in US as well, but the path between those 2 points was incredibly different, with underlying same cause and effect, So um, it's way more poetic than this, but I'm trying to like portray like how that structurally happened in my head and what
Hmm.
really inspired it. And it
Right.
really was his story.
Hmm.
And I started thinking about it and I started talking to my family and, extended family and friends in, just kind of light conversation of like what we have gone through, nothing like too much in the detail. But essentially, it became like this love letter from me to my people and to my country and to diaspora and um, to this understanding of home and how we relate to that. So it became so much bigger. But when what I like about this particular story and this particular film is that every unit can relate to like this bigger idea. And
Hmm.
you can, again, that bigger idea can then go, into one unit, like that unit, but like a personal story or something. So uh, when I started writing it, I immediately realized like it's not going to be a documentary that is following your traditional way of like, let me hear you, and then we're gonna like put it all together.
Hmm.
Um, because of the poetic nature of it, my poetic nature, I wanted to bring my own story without um, imposing it, in that way, in that format of a documentary. So I've wrote it in a way where it's a hybrid between fiction and nonfiction.
Hmm. And you
Um,
incorporated some dance as well.
the dance, yes. So
So
the
yeah.
the, the fictional aspect is told, the fictional narrative or the narrative is told through dance.
Hmm.
And as these two protagonists, a man and a woman, are trying to escape Bosnia in the 90s, but the people that we are interviewing are from present time. So there's this huge time gap that is happening. So as they are moving through space, they come across real people, real Bosnians, then they share their experiences. And this combination of the two was it caught an eye of Jessica's, interest. I mean, it was really, I approached her because we became first great colleagues and then great friends, and now we're family. So when I approached her, the screenplay wasn't done yet, so I had to finish the screenplay and then she joined in on the project. I knew immediately like that two of us can make this happen because it wasn't fitting in any kind of box.
Right. And it
And
doesn't.
you need
It's
a
very,
visionary
yeah.
to like see that and to
Hmm.
also be prepared to what actually did happen to us, where we had to navigate the film world with this very particular kind of project that doesn't fit here, or maybe fits a little bit here. It has all this potential, but essentially doesn't follow the rules in any way, like so Jessica, of course, you know, is perfect for that as a producer and as an artist, as a thinker, as a visionary,
Yeah.
so we
Well,
started working very closely.
I love how you were true to the story. So you didn't make the story fit, make your film fit into any box. You wanted to tell your story. And
Yes,
so you sort of created the box to tell that story.
I tend to do that stuff
Yeah, yeah.
with
And
my
so,
other work too.
Jessica, what was that like for you as a producer, sort of navigating that unique perspective on the story?
That's a great question. I really enjoyed, I enjoy work that bleeds over into other boundaries or pushes the boundaries of question and form. And so when I first uh, heard about the film before the script was done, I was all in and very intrigued, but you know, you gotta have you gotta have
You
the
gotta
treatment.
have the
You gotta have
script.
the script. I was like, okay, come back to me
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
your ideas are fully baked, right? She was working with filmmaker and writer Vu Pam, who
Mhm.
is also a Portland-based filmmaker. Also lives the experience of diaspora in his own right, and so reading how they incorporated the documentary elements, which obviously they didn't already know what the interviewees were going to say.
Right.
So it was a beautiful thing to read a script in that way, where you're being brought on a journey of trusting you are grounded in two main characters, the dancers, the woman and the man. And then you come across the questions that were going to be asked of the interviewees. I learned very quickly that, Daniela really knows these interviewees quite well. They're
Hmm.
made up of her family, close friends, and, that extended family. They are based here in Portland and Denver, and in Texas. And so you could tell there was deep knowledge of these individuals, but perhaps not already a deep knowledge of what their personal experience was in
Hmm.
the process of deciding to leave Bosnia and leaving and then building a new home. So there is a sense of great care and love already built into this piece,
Hmm.
but there is also, I could tell that there was going to be a lot of discovery
Yeah.
here. And that was what drew me in because I'm primarily, I work with nonfiction. I'm a theater maker and a filmmaker. And I think those two things are very much the same,
Yeah.
in the sense of the spontaneity, the improvisation, and the ephemeral nature
Hmm.
of what happens once an interviewee shares their story with you.
Hmm.
Um, so I was enthralled by it in all the different aspects. The dance called to my theater side,
Yeah.
the documentation and the way the story was coming about, I knew it would be a fun challenge to try. I'm not particularly the kind of producer who is interested in creating narrative pieces where the lighting has to be just right and the flower pot needs to be just right, and then you can shoot. um, I like to go in and start rolling. So, it was important to me that the documentary aspect of this and it's really it's the story.
Yeah.
It's what we found out and how we pieced together that fictional narrative with what they offered us later,
Mhm.
um, through the interviewees was such an exciting part of the process. We had shot the narrative first, actually, and then we shot the interviews and then blended them together. So the dancers aren't even reacting to what they know the interviewees said. They didn't know. Um,
Yeah.
they were just going off of what Daniela and our choreographer, Rena Butler, created, the score, as they call it in dance world,
Mhm.
based on the scenes. And
Hmm.
that was just absolutely thrilling to watch in
Yeah.
studio when we filmed that. It was
Mhm.
mind blowing.
Now, Daniela, how about for you? I mean, you have your own story
Uh-huh.
along the lines of this film,
Mhm.
but were there discoveries that you found in doing these interviews and in making this film about the subject, about the story? Were there surprises for you?
Of course, yeah. Some bigger than the other. There was a moment when I was talking to a dear friend of mine, Azur. Dervisha, she's in one of the interviewees.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're friends for a long time. I met him pretty much when I arrived to Portland. We've spent, we're close friends, and yet I didn't know certain details about his path because we just don't talk about it. I mean, like, it's just something that Bosnians are like that too. It's like, it
Right.
happened, we've been through it, like, leave it alone.
Mhm.
So, so there were those moments, like where I would find out, certain details about people's lives. But what was by the end of putting all of the interviewees together as they are now in the film, the like I was always going with the notion to put war, backstage. It's just like it's present, it's there, but
Mhm.
we're not gonna shine a light on it. Like, it's not what this is about. It's about people's experiences. It goes beyond it.
Right.
However, the absurdity of it really, like, took me like by surprise because of the stories that I've heard. Like,
Mhm.
how absurd, just in general, this wars are, because you're trying to make sense of it. You're trying to, like, find reason why all of these lives were affected, disturbed, and are continuously being affected by this event that took 5 years, basically, and yet the absurdity of it is the prominent, like, adjective that I would use, like, so, yeah.
But you brought some lightness to that. Hey there. If you're enjoying this episode of Oregon Indie Film, don't go anywhere. We've got more great conversation coming up. And if you believe in uplifting local voices and the power of independent storytelling, we'd love your support. Hit that follow button, share the show with a friend, or leave us a quick 5-star review. It makes a big difference. Want to get more involved? Reach out at OregonIndieFilm@gmail.com. Now, back to the episode with the dance and the animation. So I think that, telling the story, which could have been been very dark, told in a very
Mhm.
dark way,
Yeah,
you brought a lot of lightness to that with the dance. So what was
yeah.
that process like for you?
So that's, again, like, for in all of my work that is one way or another connected to my personal experience, like, and there's a lot of darkness there. It's, I always think, I see darkness as so easily reachable, like, it's such an easy thing
Yeah.
to portray, it's just everywhere, like, so to find a ray of sunshine, and something that um, can represent the beauty of our emotions as humans, as, like, situations that happen in war zones, situations that happen in refugee camps. That is way more intriguing to me, and how to do that. And I'm, as a person, I'm like that as well.
Hmm.
So in this film, it was, with the dance. Dance actually wasn't there to lull the impact. It was
Right.
more of a connection to my experience as a refugee, being in a refugee camp, and then trying to communicate with all these people from different countries
Mhm.
where we are not speaking the same language. So there's a lot of gesture going on when you are trying to communicate. And I wanted to take this story beyond Bosnian borders, beyond our experiences, because it's really about home. So, in not to rely so much on the language, and actually to break those barriers. Dance was just such a natural step up from
Mhm.
gesture, so dance is really there to express what interviewees could not really, like, put in their words,
Mhm.
something I couldn't put in the words either necessarily. And it's really through that um, emotion and empathy of dance, that the layers that this story has, they came through.
Yeah. That's
Mhm.
beautiful. It really is.
Absolutely.
Um, so how long did it take you to make this film? How long were you in production? You used
I mean,
mostly,
it started in 2020 when we
oh,
first met. I mean, about the project, not when we
yeah.
first met, but I started kind of putting the things together, like the idea in the like late summer of 2020. And then Vu and I, Vu Pam, that Jessica mentioned, started working together on the screenplay uh, around November, I think, that year. And then in February, we were done, 2021, when Jessica joined in. And this is when we really started the production,
Mhm.
fundraising, and everything. And it was a huge process because it wasn't like, okay, here are the funds, go and do this. No.
Right.
You
Right.
know, we were patching it together with different grants, different fundraising, different, executive producers that put, like their investment in this. And, the thing is we would find a little bit and then go film it. Like we'll find,
Okay.
a little bit of money,
Mhm.
then let's do that.
Mhm.
And then, to have wonderful friends who are extremely talented in Bosnia as well, that are also artists and filmmakers helped a lot because I could communicate with them to then, shoot all the exteriors and bring it, send it to me
Mhm.
to like just kind of visualize and use things that and know how this environment is going to fit in the film. And then we went there actually to Bosnia to film um, different buildings and things that became elements of the animation. But it was like such a process, and it was never boring because every single time we were dealing with a completely different set of rules, how to break them, and like how to create, and then how to connect to the story. For example, what Jessica was talking about, we filmed the dancers first, and our DP was with us, John Rock, to film the interviewees. Now we would watch how we filmed the dancers and where the interviewee is positioned in that scene, and we would try to mimic the camera work to
Mhm.
fit the dancers, and that
Wow.
was really tricky.
Yeah.
But because of animation, because of this film being memory and being in this dreamscape, like I wasn't really worried that everything fits perfectly. I already wanted the scale to be off because of how we remember things, how we dream about things. So
Mhm.
our director of animation, John Summerson, and I worked a lot on this concept of like, how are we going to put these elements together in animation when they are like patchwork of this different materials. You have live footage, you have photographs, you have interviewees, you have dancers, and all of that is like filmed separate from each other. so
Right.
so it was and then it ended up being a collage, so
Very
it was that.
challenging. Yeah. To
Yeah,
bring that all together. So
yeah.
really it was about 5 years then.
It was about 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
the world changed a lot in those 5 years from
It
21.
did, but it also didn't, because every time that we would pitch the film on a different market or a forum, or they would relate it to a certain conflict that was happening at the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So it kept happening, like, oh, this is relevant because this is happening. And it turns out it just keeps happening, like so. Unfortunately,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah,
But so that was a very sad thing to
yeah.
learn about the world.
Well, and I think, that is so important that you're bringing this message forward, and hopefully educating people about war and about, the things that happen so that maybe we learn something. I mean, that's the hope, right?
I
Um,
mean, the hope is to, yeah, it's for people to at least see the humanity within
yeah,
each other first,
exactly.
Yeah.
you know?
If it's inevitable that, and
Mhm.
it's starting to look like it is, that we're going to
Yeah.
continue to see refugees and migrants from all over the world for many different reasons throughout the rest of our lives, then maybe it's not about stopping that from happening so much as it is understanding the people that have to go through that displacement
Hmm.
when they arrive on our doorstep, or if it's us arriving on someone else's,
Hmm.
giving more grace to one another so we're less divided, and that we make space for each other
Hmm.
amidst this seemingly inevitable circumstance. And to see each other as assets, strong, courageous assets, and not what you see in the news a lot, which is, oh, those poor things, their liabilities,
Right.
and uh, all these things that are not the complete picture of humanity in general. Um, and it's a conversation that's come up after we watch the film with groups, and it's a bit of a more nuanced discussion, which I'm really proud of being a part of, and
Hmm.
enjoy talking about that on a deeper level, because then the questions become, okay, well, what can we do in our community
Right.
to
Hmm.
facilitate that and to
Yeah.
be better for our neighbors?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well,
And
I
for
think
ourselves as
and
well, like
for
because it
ourselves.
really, I mean, it really depends on what kind of world you want to live in, like
Exactly.
so.
Yeah, and I think art has a beautiful way of doing that, film in particular, but art in general, of
Hmm.
showing us the humanity of situations and, the horror of situations too. And what can we do? Hopefully it does make an impact on people's thoughts and their community and, how can we
Hmm.
all live together rather than
Hmm.
us versus them? So,
Hmm.
I think especially with film when people connect with film, it
Hmm.
helps them process that a little bit more, maybe. That's
Right. I mean, like the sense of freedom
yeah,
that you should have as a human being.
right.
And there's borders, there's
Yeah,
all of these things.
yeah,
I have a hard time understanding it myself, so it's also me trying to figure it out how I exist within those borders.
yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah, that's a topic that we could go on and on about, I
Oh,
think.
yeah.
The three of us, I think. But so you released this film internationally
Mhm.
in March, so just recently.
Yes,
But you're bringing it home to Portland.
yes.
This will be its Portland premiere then.
No, actually, we were at the Panorama Film Festival just
Oh,
recently.
oh, okay. So you
Uh-huh.
premiered at Panorama. Wonderful.
Yes,
Wonderful.
yes, this would be the second screening in Portland.
Nice. So
Mhm.
what was the reaction at Panorama? How did that go for you?
There are always people that there's a lot of crying.
I bet. I bet.
It's a very
Yeah.
emotional film.
It is a very emotional
Uh,
film.
you know, so but what I was really happy about, because all of that happened in a very short amount span of time. So we had a screening at Movies That Matter Film Festival in The Hague in Netherlands.
Hmm.
Very different audience.
Hmm.
It's a humanitarian film festival. Um, Incredibly tough filmmakers, tough subjects, versus Ann Arbor Film Festival, where we had our world premiere. Uh, it's an experimental avant-garde film
Right.
festival. Again, very different audience versus, Panorama Film Festival. Again, different audience, different backgrounds. However, what made both Jessica and I very happy is that what people picked up on, it was very um there were the same things. So as a maker, as someone that wants to communicate these ideas, that's the greatest
Yeah.
thing that can happen, is that you
Yeah.
can have this very different audiences that then ask you similar questions, have
Hmm.
similar reactions, and pick up on those nuances that Jessica was talking about.
Yeah, that
So
has to
that
feel
was
fantastic that,
that
hey,
feels
my
great.
message is getting across to people.
Yeah.
They get
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, you get it,
exactly.
which we were, and that
Right.
speaks to how much film world today undermines its
Yes.
audiences, because we were
Yes.
told so many times that, like this kind of storytelling will be difficult for people to, connect to like where are the audiences for something like that. And they're absolutely out there and they're, understanding it. There's just, I think we need to make more of these things of where it's going outside of the box or like pushing boundaries of what storytelling filmmaking is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you do have
agree.
to trust your audience
Mhm.
and invite them in and find them.
Mhm.
That's a part of this process is communing with the people who want to commune with you.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the responses have been really fantastic. We got a standing ovation at Movies That Matter. We
Mhm.
won Best in Dance Film at Ann Arbor Film Festival, and we were nominated for Best Documentary Feature at Panorama. And so in both the Q&As and in, like accolades, we are definitely being invited to share this film more and more.
Mhm.
And that can only be better from here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
believe, it goes back to just being true to the story. I think if you tell the story authentically as you mean to tell it, the audience will find you. They'll find your story. And I think that's happening, right? As more and more people hear about it and want to see this film.
Mhm.
It's beautifully done. It really is
Thank
beautifully
you.
done. Um, so what's your plan with the film? I mean, you're in festivals right now.
Mhm.
And as we all know, distribution channels have shifted and they're
Mhm.
evolving. So what's your approach to distribution and sort of getting this film out there beyond festivals?
hmm Our plan is to take a more handheld DIY independent distribution approach.
Mhm.
Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to, try to make relationships with sales agents and distributors, maybe especially in Europe. But from what we're seeing in the industry and what we're experiencing with the film, it's the quality interactions that are the most fulfilling.
Mhm.
And so doing it ourselves and creating small theatrical um, periods of time where the film becomes available, and then eventually we will release it at a strategic time online. Um, there's really cool things happening where you can create a period of time where a group of people can all watch online together. And then separate from that, you can also make it available for individual rental. So there's even more steps that you can take. And if you thread them together with intention and strategy, and really consideration of the timeline, then these things create these waves that you get to ride as artists and audience together.
Mhm.
And really it's about having the conversations, the result, the what they call impact in the documentary industry where the conversation goes beyond the theater.
Mhm.
That is one of our major goals, and so we're looking right now towards a summer Euro tour, a select handful of theatrical screenings in the Balkans, in Greece, and in Switzerland, and potentially more, depending on the kind of support we can gather. And then we also are developing a animation workshop, the Pour the Water as I Leave animation workshop, which is part of our impact plan and a way of, paying it forward, really. The the workshop is really designed for people to reclaim the narrative and use animation as a way of telling their story.
Mhm.
So it is geared towards populations of immigrants and refugees, especially because of our partners. We're partnering with Pacific Refugee Support Group here in Portland to develop this workshop for their communities. And then once we've offered it here and learned from the offering, we'll be able to expand it to groups outside of the US and beyond.
Mhm.
So in that way, we're screening the film and then interacting with people to help generate creativity and tell their own story through animation as well.
Well,
So
and I
this is going to
love,
go on for years.
yeah, I mean, the ripples that this is going to create is incredible because, I imagine, I mean, I know that there are so many stories to be told, right? Everyone has a story, but I think that people are limited by language barriers and by culture. And I think what you guys are doing is to helping tell stories in a different way through film, through animation that really could create more ways eventually. So bravo, this is amazing. I'm
You.
super excited for that. And
Yeah.
you guys have some big goals with the film. Yeah, it's more than just a film. It's you've got some big goals
Yeah.
happening. So I always like to ask this question, and I'll ask it of both of you. But Daniela, for you first, what is your big, beautiful dream? If you could do anything in the world, doesn't have to be film related or related to this project, just anything, money, time, not an object. Your big, beautiful dream. What do you see for yourself? On the spot. I put you on the spot. Sorry.
You did put me on the spot. Um,
I won because I get to go
Oh,
second, so I get to
yeah,
I
think about it.
know,
yeah, you get to
yeah.
think about it.
I have so many dreams though, like the dream is actually access, honestly.
Yeah.
Access to if we're not talking money or anything, like it's just being able to continue creating all of this. And I'm gonna say it.
You say it.
um, right now, I really miss my country, and it would be just wonderful if I could spend more time there.
Yeah.
So I see myself working towards that, and I always try to do that. But there is, money, time, all of this that comes, like in between me and what I envision, how I can, what I can do if I spend more than 2 weeks in Bosnia, which is usually how long I spend,
Right.
my time there. But I feel that being able to see the world and travel, you know, now you got me going. Like, I want to
Yeah,
travel.
see, that's my
I want to
point.
make
So,
movies. I
thank
want to live in
you.
Bosnia for a little while.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like all of these things. And then I want all of my people,
Yeah.
to be taken care of because this kind of filmmaking is really taking a toll on people around you,
Yeah.
and it's something that I sincerely want to take away that burden, from my family, from the community that I'm a part of, because it takes a lot. And we did have a huge support to make this,
Right.
because it's not a commercial film that it's gonna like make you tons of fun. The funding itself, like, we would pay artists. Jessica and I were always like at the end, and that kind of stuff. So it would be a dream to continue creating things like this without having to burden literally everyone around you, because the filmmaking world is not doing that for
Right.
us, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I think we all are on the same page with that and trying to work forward where everyone can make a living wage from making art, you know.
Right, which, European filmmaking and US filmmaking also, what we've learned, has quite it's a big difference in how indie filmmakers are
Yeah.
supported. And it would be great to see more of that here, but that would require kind of like a reconstructing the whole system,
Yeah.
which again, we have done that before. And I always feel like I've said this on many panels, on many interviews. If you want things to change, like, you need to listen to us. We are the visionaries. Like, that's what we do the whole day. That's exactly what we do. Like, we
Yeah.
just envision things. So,
Yeah.
like, it's something that I feel there has to be a little bit more trust with artists
Mhm.
rather than putting us in this box of like, well, only one of you is actually an artist.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
So,
that's really part of my reason for doing this podcast is to
mhm,
really learn about the artists, the filmmakers,
mhm,
how they're making it happen, and removing some of those barriers that people put in front of themselves
mhm,
to making film. You know,
mhm,
Oregon is, I think, the indie film capital. We have
mhm,
so much talent here, so many filmmakers like
mhm,
yourself, and they're making it happen. And so
mhm,
I think building that awareness around that maybe that will begin to change how people perceive indie filmmaking. Maybe.
mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's my part of it, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's great. And we're very grateful for that.
Yeah, how I've chosen to contribute, what I think could help. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, of course,
yeah.
of course.
Yes.
All right,
Yeah.
Jessica, you're on the spot. What's your big, beautiful dream?
Oh gosh. Well, it clicks with Daniela's dream, and I think I'm starting to hear a little bit of what your dream is, Dawn.
We all have the same. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really feel like, life goes in several stages. There's like the sponge stage, and then there's the processing stage, which is like the art making, getting the story out of your, channeling the story through you as the vessel, and then the teaching and sharing stage, the elderhood part of life. And you need a container to hold that. And I love what you're saying, Don, about Portland representing, or this region representing, sort of the indie capital, the maker's place.
Mhm,
I've always had this dream to offer my own container, my own space, a theater that can morph into all different iterations of itself, a place to live and a place to make and a place to invite those who don't think they're creative,
mhm,
or there's barriers to becoming an artist, where that kind of melts away. And I really do increasingly feel like Portland and the surrounding area is a great place to try and build that. You see examples of it all over the city and the surrounding area. And so I guess a little bit of that is like planting roots here, and then creating a space to nurture my own work and thus everyone around me. And those ripple effects, um, is just like like the healing of it all. That's really, we need dialogue in order to make those revolutionary changes that Daniela was talking about, if we want our system to support independent artists. So we need places to ideate that and to nurture that. And so if I could create a space to add to the pile of spaces, that helps build that network and that web that we desperately need, then that's one of my biggest dreams.
I love it. Yeah,
Mhm.
fantastic. So Daniela, what's next for you? I mean, you obviously are, in the festivals and promoting this film, but what else are you working on? What's next?
Um, I'm
Yeah, I see. I recognize all the notes. My whiteboard is back here
I
behind me.
see. Yeah.
Look at
I have
that.
it
That's
hidden.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the next film that I'm writing right now. I am on, there's the screenplay right here. This
Yeah.
is first draft. I'm working on the third draft right now. It's extremely challenging. I have never, like, when I approached Vu to write a screenplay for Pour the Water as I Leave, is because Vu had experiences as a filmmaker, with narrative films, like, and writing of the screenplays. And I realized way later that I was just terrified of writing, because for years I've been claiming to be a visual artist, like, or this is how I tell things. So And when I started being interested in the film, mnemonics was very experimental. There was a narration that was written by my sister, actually. But with the Dogs of Home, I'm like, I want to bring other characters, and documentary was perfect format for that because I can just ask questions and they will give me the story.
Mhm.
Pour the Water as I Leave was this next step of my relationship with writing again because I was collaborating. Like it was not hard for me to write the story itself, but then to translate that to a screenplay, I was very intimidated with that process. And Vu, took on that role. And then through all of that, like I just kind of, I'm not afraid of writing anymore, so so I started writing with Hayes Roy Lewis, who is another filmmaker here based in Portland, on the story, but this will be my screenplay, my first screenplay that I have actually written. And I am hoping to go into production probably next year, by the time we get, and I want to film it in Bosnia. That was another thing why how I keep bringing my world here to the Balkans, because it seems to be the best way to connect the two is through my work. So hopefully I will be on a set somewhere in Bosnia next year. So
Wonderful.
that's the goal. Yeah, yeah. And then who knows? I mean, this is in parallel with everything that we're doing with Pour the Water because we are planning an educational tour. We are doing the workshop. There'll be, there's so much that is happening with Pour the Water as I leave. But alongside with that, I want to kick off this new film as a challenge as well because it's, dealing with actors. It's fictional completely. It's live action. It's like, so I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that's very
Mhm.
exciting. Well, congratulations on overcoming your fear of screenwriting.
Turns out,
I
like,
love it.
it's not, it was the kind of writing I was meant for because the
Exactly.
academic writing that I did through
Yeah.
my studies was what kept me away from it,
I know.
but it's
Yeah.
a very different style of writing. And
Yes.
then once that clicked,
Yeah.
now it's all over, yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, and Jessica, I feel like I need to just interview you on one of these episodes because you have so much going on. I know we're talking about a couple of your other films coming up in other episodes. But yeah, I would love to get you scheduled to kind of
Thank
Yeah.
you.
you about who you are and what you do and all of that fun stuff.
Oh,
Um,
that's
but you're
wonderful.
both online. I'll put all of those links in the show notes for the episode,
Oh,
links
thank
for the tickets for June 20th at
you.
Whitsell Auditorium.
Great. I
Yeah,
just want to
everyone.
mention one other,
Yeah.
that whole day is got a lot of programming going on. At 10 a.m., we're all meeting at the Salmon Street Springs down at the waterfront for the PRSG World Refugee Day walk. It's a 3-mile walk in honor of refugees and immigrants. And then we're going to meet at the Whitsell at the Finley studio. At 1:30, Daniela's offering a 1-hour masterclass
Wow.
on the process of animating for this film,
Mhm.
which will also sort of be a precursor to the animation workshop that we referenced. And then after that, at 3 o'clock, the film screens in the Whitsell. So it's a full day, and we'd love
Yeah.
everybody to come join us.
Mhm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds very inspirational. Are you guys getting news coverage about that? I'm hoping, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah.
we are trying. So if
Yeah.
you would like to
Yeah.
advise me in that regard, I would very
Yeah.
much appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any connections, but they
You are the
certainly.
connection,
Yeah,
Dawn. You are the
maybe I'm the
connection.
connection. I'll try to
This
find
has
some
been
connections. Yeah.
this has been
But
lovely.
yeah, I'll put all of that in the show notes. Wow, best of luck to you,
Thank you.
Daniela, on this film and Jessica on this and your other projects. I'm very inspired by what you're doing and how you're telling stories. So yeah, keep up the good work.
We'll try. We're
Thank
doing our
you.
best. Yeah, thank
And
you.
likewise, thank you for
Mhm.
making a clear call that this is a place where independent film can be made because
Yes.
we support each other and we love film.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Wonderful. Well, thank you so
Wonderful.
much. Thanks for
Thank
being
you so
here.
much, Don. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening. Be sure to get your tickets for the Portland screening of Daniela's film, Pour the Water as I Leave. Attend the other events in celebration of World Refugee Day. Attend the Q&A and meet Daniela in person. You'll find the link in the show notes, along with links to Daniela's website and social media channels. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to share it with your friends. We'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review. Help us connect with more indie film lovers. Would you like to support the podcast by becoming a guest or a sponsor? Reach out at OregonIndieFilm@gmail.com.